Welcome to episode 71 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. In this episode's main segment, I'm interviewing Jorge Gonzalez from the Tracking Board. The Tracking Board offers a variety of screenwriting services, which we'll talk about in the interview, so stay tuned for that. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread the word about the podcast, so they are very much appreciated. A couple of quick notes. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 71. Also, if you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address, and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide, how to write a professional logline and query letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. It really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Also, a quick plug for the new SYS screenwriting analysis service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional script evaluation on your script. All the readers have experience reading for studios, production companies, agencies, or contests. The readers I've partnered with are the gatekeepers. They're exactly the same people who are going to be reading your scripts at the companies you submit to. The readers will evaluate your script on several key factors like concept and premise, structure, character, dialogue, and marketability. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend. I'm also offering a bonus. If you get a 1 recommend from a reader, you get a free email and fax blast to my list of industry contacts. This is the same list blast. This is the same exact blast service I use myself to promote my own scripts, and it's the same service I sell on the website. It's a great way to get your script into the hands of producers who are looking to make movies. Also, on the website, you can read a quick bio of each reader, and you can pick the one who you would like to read your screenplay. People have been asking about how they can use the 3-pack that we're currently offering. The 3-pack is $199, so that's less than $67 per script read. You can use it however you would like. You can use it, you can buy the 3-pack and you can send one script to 3 different readers. You can send the same script to the same reader after getting notes, so you can send it to him, you can get notes, you can send it back to him. You can send 3 different scripts to the 3 different readers or 3 different scripts to the same reader. It's really totally flexible. It's however you want to do it. And again, it's just $199 for 3 script reads, and that's just $67 per script read. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. A quick few words about what I'm working on. I finished the rewrite on my sci-fi thriller script last week. Sent it off to the director. He is going to be reading it hopefully this week. He's also putting together a table read of the script in a couple of weeks. This should be exciting. It's always good to hear your stuff read by actors. He's got a bunch of actor friends. Obviously, I have a few actor friends. I'll probably get them to come in as well. But we'll sit around in a group, and the actors will read each part. We'll have a narrator read it. And it's just a real good way of listening to your script read by professional actors and see if it's actually working. You'll get some notes after the script is done. So it's just a good way to really workshop your material. And it's very inexpensive. Anybody can do this. Obviously, if you live in LA, you'll probably have more access to professional actors. But even if you don't live in LA, I highly recommend this. Just, get some friends together, all the major roles assigned to one specific person, so they read that character, get a narrator, and then just read through your script and just hearing it and hearing how people interpret your dialogue. It's just a great learning experience. So anyway, I'm back on my limited location mob action thriller script. As I mentioned, I have a draft of that done. I need to go in and implement some of the changes. I've got a full reading on that scheduled in early June with my writers group. So that's sort of my hard deadline now. I'm going to polish it up till early June. Then I'm going to read it in my writers group. I'll get some notes back from them, and then I'll do a quick polish and then start sending it out. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing Jorge Gonzalez from the Tracking Board. Here is the interview. Welcome, Jorge, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So to start out, I wonder if you can give us a quick overview of your career in the entertainment industry, kind of how you got started and got to where you are today.
Yeah, when I actually started everything, I actually started out as a writer, and I wrote for a few years. I was part of a writing trio, which they're a little few and far between, unless you're like the Broken Lizard guys. And I wrote a pilot with a couple of good buddies of mine who we'd been collaborating on things ever since, back in high school. And, we realized quickly that everybody has a pilot script out there. So we decided to take it a step further, and we actually, borrowed some money and took out a loan for, what at the time was a pretty hefty amount. And we shot the pilot. And we were really fortunate enough. We put it out on the internet as a full 30-minute pilot, which around the time we did that, which was around 2007, was still a bit of a fresh idea. And an assistant who was working at Management 360 at the time saw it, showed it to his boss. They asked us, what else we had in the pipeline. We showed it to them, and we were fortunate. We found ourselves with representation, at a good size management company, and we wrote a feature spec. We went out to all the major studios. It didn't materialize into any sort of spec sale or anything like that, but it was great. We did the whole water bottle couch tour across town and met a lot of the great studio-based production companies. And it was a good experience early on as a writer to have. And from there, I transitioned to more of the development side of things, and I worked at a production management company and worked with writers on developing both features and TV pilots. And now I find myself here at Tracking Board and Launchpad, and just working on just creating just great competitions and utilizing the networks and the relationships that we have and that we've accumulated over the years, and just really trying to help writers get that exposure, get that first break that, in my instance, was really helpful, and I know it could be for a lot of others.
Okay. I want to go back and just dig into some of the things you said. You mentioned this pilot episode that you shot, and I'm always curious. It sounds like, that's about best case scenario with something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that you get some meetings and at least it kind of gets you in the door at a few places. I always like to get a scope of sort of like, were there other things that you were trying that maybe didn't work, and how much writing had you done up until that point? But let's start with that. Were there some other things that you tried that just, flat out didn't work? Because I always like to just get a sense of sort of the scope of what writers are doing, because obviously everyone talks about the successes, but I think the failures are equally as important to understand that part of success is failing.
Yeah, absolutely. We wrote a feature spec script that, looking back at it, it was our first time. It was our first time doing it. It was very green, and we were trying to do a genre. We were, writing a drama at the time. It really wasn't our forte. It wasn't our bread and butter. So we were like, well, look, we love comedy, and that's really what we're ultimately setting out to do. So let's go into that. Let's do that. And it's about finding an idea that you really like and that you really can speak to and lend something to. And at the time, I had read this op-ed piece in the New York Times, which it was called the Odyssey Years. It was just about this period in people's lives where, older generations, like, our parents' generation, for example, they, it was a little bit more black and white. You went to school, you got a job, you got married, good job, you did it. Like, there's your life. And however, nowadays, there's a lot more of this gray area. It's this period of self-discovery where you fall in and out of love. You go from job to job to job. You move from, different states and things like that. And so it was about finding an idea that really spoke to where I was at in my early 20s at the time. And really something that I felt I can, help bring life to. And that's what we did. And, we wrote it, and we just figured that, let's do something. Let's do grad school for ourselves, right? That's the way we looked at it. We took out a loan for, at the time was like 20 grand and then raised some money ourselves. And that's the way we looked at it, is we were investing in ourselves, sort of a grad school that we kind of created for ourselves. And I never regret it. It was one of the best opportunities that I had, early on.
Yeah. How many other pilot scripts had you written? You had just, at this point, the three of you had written this one spec script, and then literally this was your first pilot script?
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and move on to the tracking board. Maybe you can kind of just talk about how you got involved with that. I'm actually not that clear what your involvement with it is. I mean, was it formed? Who started it? And just take us back to sort of the beginning of that and bring us up to speed.
Oh, for sure. Well, the tracking board is it's a community online where it's a mixture of writers, directors, filmmakers, agents, managers, assistants, executives, you name it. Not only are we a news reporting site where we break exclusive stories every day, but also in addition to that, we track the spec market very aggressively. For myself, back when I was a development executive, I mean, I had to know what specs were hitting the town, so that we could try to get them, potentially make a play for them. And it's also a great way of finding out who are the next great writers, knowing all the great material that's out there in the marketplace. So that's something that the tracking board, it's a valuable resource where there is up to the minute updates on what territory a spec script went into, and so on and so forth. So it's a really great resource. And then from the tracking board was birthed the Launchpad competitions. So there's both a feature competition as well as the pilot competitions. We've been around for doing the competitions for about 18 months now, and have been extremely pleased with the success that we've had, which is really just about giving writers an opportunity to get some more exposure, get representation. We've helped 63 writers get signed in the 18 months, and it's something that we're really happy about, we're really pleased with.
Mm-hmm. So again, let's just dig into the tracking board again. Yeah. What exactly, like I noticed there's a $79 potentially, you can obviously there's certain services that are free. You can pay $79. Just walk us through how you see like a writer using the tracking board to help their career. Obviously the contest is maybe a separate thing, but what is the tracking board like, tracking the spec market? How can a writer use that to benefit their careers?
Sure. Well, in addition to tracking specs and things like that, and breaking news stories, a lot of people also who are looking to get into the entertainment industry, we all the time post jobs and have exclusive job postings that we have there, and as well there is another component of it where it's a kind of a community-based group where people can ask others for advice. Let's say someone is trying to put together a film, whether let's say it's a genre film, right? And they want a director's list of genre directors that are kind of on the up and up, or that are relevant, that studios want to be in business with. It's a place where people can do that through these sort of email groups, and it's a great community that way. So you can really interact with people if you have questions, whether it's about we have people at all different stages of their careers. So it's really great because, sometimes you have instances where, you're getting really great insight or really great information that's coming from someone that's a little bit more established. And it's really helpful to a young writer. Sometimes it's just people asking, hey, has anybody read any good scripts? Or is there, what's a great example is, does anybody have a sample of what a good show Bible should be like? What should my series Bible look like? Things like that, and being able to offer up answers in that capacity.
Mm-hmm. And that's in the form of forums. There's like online forums that you participate in. How do these people interact?
Yeah. So what you do is, once you are a member, you're part of this group where you can just, everybody is connected via a Google group, and you can email your question or your thoughts, and that's how the communities can interact with one another.
Okay. And who started Tracking Board?
The Tracking Board was started by a gentleman named Chris Contreras, who's the editor-in-chief, also the person who started the Launchpad competitions as well.
Okay, perfect. So let's move on to these Launchpad competitions. As I said, I know you guys are very proud of what you guys have done with them, and it is pretty impressive looking at the stats. So, on one of the page, just like you just mentioned, 63 writers signed, 27 projects set up, 9 writers staffed, 3 bidding wars. So let's talk about that. Just to be absolutely clear, those are all statistics specifically. They're not through some of the other tracking board services. Those are statistics from just the contests that you've run in the last 18 months.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. And maybe just walk us through sort of the process of, what it would look like for a writer to get repped. They enter the contest, what percentage of the people, you place in the top 10%. Just sort of walk us through the process of what happens when you are in the contest and how it moves along and how you ultimately can find yourself with representation.
Sure. Of course, actually we've grown in, we're really happy because, we've grown as more and more people are finding out about, our competition and the great successes that we've had. We are expanding this year for the pilots competition. We're adding a quarterfinalist segment. So now the top 40 writers, are going to be, we're going to get those names out to our exclusive list of executives, agents, managers, so that they can have that exposure. And what's great is, we keep the door open, and it's not just about fielding incoming queries or calls about people who want to read these scripts, but we're actively trying to pair up reps that we know that are looking for this type of writer and things like that. And so we are very much kind of pounding the pavement. Trying to make those connections because we know that, reps, they have specific needs that they're looking for. And so we just try to find a good way to marry those two. And it's been really successful for us. It's been a really great opportunity for us to, help writers who, let's say, we know that they are looking for a manager and, we try to match personalities as well, based on the kind of stuff that they read, the stuff that the writers write. What we really want to do is just find great dynamics. We want someone to be working with someone that they can really see themselves having a long-standing career with. And of course, look, an agent and manager, they open up doors in a major way. I mean, there are many different ways to find success. For a lot of them, having that person who can open up those doors, because those reps, they have a huge list of people and relationships that they've cultivated for years and years, for some of them even for decades. And, they can help those writers get into, different production companies, whether, let's say they want to be ultimately staffed on a show, they can get them in front of the right people. And that's what it's about. It's just about really trying to find, great writers and great reps and put them together so that they can have a long-lasting relationship. That's what we're about. We're about building careers. There are a lot of other competitions that, they do a good job at, recognizing some people, but, it should not just stop with, identifying that winner and putting their name on a website where it just kind of lives. There has to be more follow through. There has to be some sort of proactive engagement. And that's really where we come in. That's what we like to do. And that's how we've helped generate the sort of success for these competitions. That's resulted in the last 18 months.
Mm-hmm. And you said, so there's going to be, from this pilot competition, did you say 40 winners will get moved on to that next level? What you mentioned the number 40.
Sure. Sorry. We'll have the top 40 is going to be will be considered our quarterfinalist, top 25, our semifinalist, then our top 10 finalists, and then we'll have 3 grand prize winners. The 3 winners will be in the overall category, and we'll also have 1 winner for the comedy and the drama category.
Okay, perfect. And what specifically happens, like, if you're a quarterfinal, so you're one of these 40 people, like, it sounds like it's more fluid. Like, if you find a script that's in this quarterfinal group and you have an agent that's looking for that type of material, is someone in the quarterfinals liable to get some exposure that way? Or do you limit that to the top semifinals or finalists, or is there some, benchmark that you have for what gets passed on to agents?
Yeah. Truthfully, we like to advocate for our top 40. We really do. Obviously, the judges are all going to be reading the top 25 scripts, So that's all of the industry agents and managers. They are going to be, personally evaluating those. And then the top 40. But if you're still in that quarterfinalist range, we don't just give up there. We want to go the extra mile, and that's when we'll try to specifically target certain agents, managers, producers who we really feel would be a good fit for these individuals. So if you make the top 40, we're fighting for you is the best way that I could phrase it.
Okay, perfect. And do you have some idea roughly how many people will enter the contest? So is that 40? Is that 10%? If you get 4,000 entries, that's 1%. Do you have some rough idea what the actual total numbers will be?
It depends. I know for our feature competition, we had around 2,000 entries. So this one is the previous competitions were close to that. But as we continue to grow and the word gets out there, we're expecting a really good turnout. So all I could say is, if you have a great script and you really want to see if your script can make it to that level, there's the only way that you're going to find out is by entering and letting your work and all of the labor that you've been putting into that, letting it have its opportunity to shine.
Yeah. I wonder too, as someone who sees a lot of scripts come in, is there any type of scripts that you would say do better in contests versus, other types of scripts? Just maybe some general tips for people that are entering contests. We've had quite a wide variety. We've had anything from, animated pilots to genre specific. Good material in any category. I've noticed that there seems to be a trend, if you will, in some some kind of like sci-fi with pilots that have sci-fi elements. But again, though that's a trend, that may not be the trend tomorrow, and so it's always kind of tough. You never really want to necessarily chase the trend because that could you could quickly find yourself chasing something that is old news. It's pretty diverse, and I think that's what makes it so fun. It makes it so great is, there are since there is such a wide net in terms of the type of material that comes in, there's something there for everyone. Mm-hmm. I wonder too, do you see any gap? There's going to be some scripts that maybe place well in the contest, but don't do so well in the marketplace. Do you see any kind of a gap? Sometimes scripts are not able to make that transition, and maybe you can talk a little bit about, why there is a gap, if there is a gap. Yeah, well, I think in some instances, what this competition does. We've had. Like you mentioned, there's been 27, success stories, specifically in terms of projects that have been sold and set up. And those are scenarios where, like, for example, one of our pilots from last year's competition, Dylan Broad, wrote a great project called Paradox, and that's something that Tim Kring's Imperative Entertainment is developing, and that's something where that was they loved the idea and the concept that was there. But there's other instances where it's a great opportunity for a writer to get some exposure, and it allows their reps to say, wow, I really love your work. I think this is amazing. What else do you have? And that's one of the things that we always try to tell writers as well is. It's equally just as important to have that great. Sure, you have to have that great pilot, but you also need to have maybe it's another script ready that that you've been working on, or at least having ideas, because that's what agents and managers and even producers are going to want to hear. Is they're going to say, okay, well, this is great, but it may not work for whatever reason. There might be something that's comparable out in the marketplace already, but I love this other idea you have. You certainly have the talent. Like, let's explore that. Let's work on this together. I'm curious too. I have an email and fax blast service that I use to get queries out. And one of the things that I've definitely noticed, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to hear this, and I'd be curious to hear from the contest perspective, but the people that have the most success with my email and fax blast service honestly, they're people that have quite a bit of experience, and it's very rare that a complete newbie, in fact, I don't know that it's ever happened with my service. And I'm curious, like you mentioned, like the bidding wars, 27 projects getting set up. I mean, is there some level of experience that most of these writers already have before they even enter the contest? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. A great example of that is the writer's name is Eric Koenig, and he wrote Matriarch, which was one of the top scripts in our feature contest last year. And he had written before nothing that had ever really been exposed at that level. And as a result of the competition, he found himself with reps. We were able to pair him up with a great team of agents at Paradigm and great managers at Bender Spank. His script shortly after went into the marketplace as a feature spec. It went up on a Monday, and the deal closed on a Tuesday. So he's someone who he works in the Air Force. He's a reservist, and he's had a number of different jobs over his career that ultimately have helped inform him as a writer and make him very well-rounded. But he hadn't had that sort of level of exposure before, and but we're really honored that our competition was able to help him get that first spec sale. And it was a really lucrative deal, and now that project is set up at Paramount and being produced with Red Wagon and Romark Entertainment.
Yeah. And I'm definitely not saying it never happens, but I mean, would you say that there is some level of experience that most of the people that have success, some level of experience that you see from these writers that get into this quarterfinal and semifinal stage?
Definitely. I think, people have usually it's not their first script that they've written. There are those instances, but for a lot of these individuals who enter, they've been writing for a while, and they may have entered other competitions and things like that. But what we really, again, pride ourselves on is being that advocate for them to help get them to that next level. If they already have the talent, if they've been working tirelessly at their craft, let us help you, using our resources in our competition to help get you to that next level. I think it definitely helps. I mean, the more that you've written, the better you are. I mean, I can remember the first thing I wrote. It was looking back at it, it's laughable, but you know what? Like, you look at it and you're kind of, you can kind of chuckle and be happy with it because it's that sort of like that rite of passage. It's that badge of honor. And ultimately, look, if you have the talent, whether if it's your first or your 10th, you gotta eventually, send your kids off to college, right? You gotta put them out there and let them be seen, and take on a life of their own. So again, to answer your question, sorry, it's a little bit of both. But I certainly think that, having some prior experience in writing, is certainly helpful.
Yeah. And I wonder, is there any restrictions on entering the contest? Like if you already have an agent or manager, if you've already sold scripts, you can't enter the contest. Is there any restrictions on something like?
Yeah, no, there's really no restrictions like that. We have
some of the contests do have restrictions, like they're geared towards newer writers that haven't had any success yet.
Right. No, I mean, look, one of the things we would certainly love to continue to help give exposure to writers who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity. I mean, we have people who enter from all over the world, from Australia, the UK, Canada, South Africa, I mean, and so on. And if there is any way that we can help bring Hollywood closer to them as a result of this competition and help get them paired up with the right reps, that's really what it's all about. So, but we do have people who enter who maybe they have they have a manager, but maybe they want to use this as a platform to help them try to find an agent, or so on and so forth.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I will definitely link to Launchpad in the show notes. I will link to trackingboard.com in the show notes as well. So I'll have all that. Maybe you can just tell us, what's the best way for people to kind of keep up with you and with the contest. You can mention your Twitter handle. I'll get all that stuff and put that in the show notes too. But, just mention your Twitter handle, your Facebook page, anything that is a good way for people to contact you and connect with you guys.
Oh, for sure. Well, the best way to find all the information on our contest is visiting our website, which is launchpad.tracking-board.com. You can find out all of the different. You can read for yourself all of this, the success stories that we've had, some of the stats. You can find out who the judges are for this year. We have a great judging panel that we've put together for this year. As well, you can check us out on Twitter and on Facebook. For Tracking Board, we have a great community of 46,000 Twitter followers. So definitely want to visit us there. You can always email us too if you have questions. You can email one of our info accounts there, and we'll be happy. We have a great customer service team as well who will get back and answer any of the other questions that you might have.
Perfect. Well, that's great. Jorge, as I said, this has been a great interview. You've been very generous with your time. I really appreciate your coming on. I know I learned a lot about just the tracking board, and maybe I'll send one of my scripts in and see how it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you totally should. Well, thank you very much, Ashley. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
A quick plug for my email and fax blast service. I'm running a special right now where you can purchase 1/3 of the blast for a little more than $50. The total list is around 6,000 contacts, so that first 1/3 is about 2,000 contacts. So it's still a pretty large number of producers that you're going to get your query sent to. I've done this just to lower the barrier to entry so that people can check out the blast without having to invest a whole lot of money up front. Obviously, if it works, you do the first third and it really works for you, you're welcome to buy the second 2/3 of the blast as well. The one thing that hasn't changed, I still require that you join SYS Select, which at the time of this recording is just $24.99 per month. The reason I require this as part of the process is that I'm going to personally look at your logline and query letter and help you make them as good as possible. This is really for everyone's benefit. I want to make sure that the query letters and log lines are well written before I send them out to my list. The people receiving these email queries, they can unsubscribe from these blasts, so sending out a bunch of half-baked query letters will just burn the list up, which hurts everyone who might ever want to use this service in the future, including myself. Also, by getting my feedback on your login and query letter, it means your response rate is going to be much higher. I've been doing this for a while and I've had a lot of success from cold query letters, so I think getting my feedback alone is valuable and worth the price of admission. So the 1/3 of the blast plus 1 month of SYS Select is just $78, and that's a blast to more than 2,000 industry producers. It's really never going to be any cheaper than that. So if you ever want to try it out, now is the time. Anyway, to check this out, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/blast. Basically, what's going to happen is you're going to sign up to SYS Select. As I said, that's $24.99. Once you sign up for that, you're going to get an automated email which tells you how to create your account. You're going to create your account, and then once you've created your account, you are a member. And then you're going to go to the SYS Select forum. That forum is only available to paid members. You've just signed up for SYS Select. You're now a paid member. Now you have access to this forum. And you're going to see in this forum, there's going to be a number of threads, but 2 of the threads, one of them is going to be labeled query letter, and one of them is going to be labeled logline. You're going to put your logline in the logline thread. You're going to put your query letter in the query letter thread, and then me and sometimes other members of the forum will go in and give you notes. But I'm going to give you very specific notes, and I'm going to help you basically whip your query letter and whip your logline into shape so that you're going to get the best response from your query letter possible. Anyway, again, to check this out, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/blast. In the next episode of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Mills Goodloe, who wrote the film The Age of Adeline, starring Blake Lively and Harrison Ford. It's out in theaters right now, so definitely check it out if you can. He's had an interesting career, and we talk about how he got started and how this film finally got made. He wrote the first draft over 12 years ago. It's finally getting made. It's just finally getting released now. So it was a long process, and we really dig into that process and some of the details of that. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. To wrap things up, I just want to touch on a few things from today's interview with Jorge. Do check out the Tracking Board's Twitter feed. I'll link to that in the show notes. It's twitter.com/mytrackingboard. They're very active on Twitter, so there's a lot of great information on their Twitter feed. There are also a couple of add-on prizes that go along with this contest. Management representation from the management company Heroes and Villains Entertainment. There's a mentorship which you can add on where 3 past winners will mentor you. Those 3 past winners who are actually staff writers will mentor you. So there's a ton of stuff you can possibly win with this contest. So do check out the site for details. There's so many ins and outs to this, and it's really impressive what they've done. As I said, they're really delivering results, and as you can tell just from the interview with Jorge, they're really putting an emphasis on trying to help their writers succeed, and that's great. That's great for anybody who enters and places highly in the contest. At this point, I've had a lot of people who run these contests on the podcast, and I can honestly say they're all very much interested in helping screenwriters. They all understand that the best way to build their contest up is to really help the winners succeed. So I definitely think that contests should be a part of your marketing mix. Recently, too, I've also been getting the Screenwriting Staffing Premium newsletter. I will link to that in the show notes as well in case you'd like to check it out. Screenwriting Staffing sends out emails with paid screenwriting jobs in them. I've had some interesting interactions from this. I've actually found some other screenwriting blogs looking for content, and I pitched them on the idea of basically syndicating this podcast on their site. So I've actually found a couple of other screenwriting blogs willing to syndicate this podcast onto them. So that's just been great. It's a win-win situation. They get some good content for the site, and I get more exposure for the podcast. So, and I found these types of, I found both of these through the Screenwriting Staffing newsletter. I've also seen a few screenwriting professor jobs in the newsletter, and this is something I've never seen in any of these types of newsletters before. So if you're thinking about becoming a screenwriting professor, you want to teach at a university, this might be a good fit for you. I've actually had a few producers request my scripts too. Typically the newsletter, when it comes to you, there's producers specifically asking, I need a script like this. You send a query letter to them saying, I have this script, and you pitch it with your log line. And I've had a few producers get back to me, say, yes, send the script. Haven't heard back from that, but it's all been pretty recently. But it seems pretty active. I haven't sent a ton of query letters I haven't sent a ton of query letters to these leads, but I've gotten a pretty good response from the query letters I have sent. So these leads seem pretty active. And the reason I mentioned this, not just to pitch the screenwriting staffing service, which I do think is an excellent service, but the reason I mentioned this is just to show you that I am also experimenting and I'm trying to add to my marketing mix as well. So if you're out there thinking, gee, should I add contests? Should I enter contests? You got to just get out there and experiment with stuff. And as I said, hopefully from listening to this podcast, you get the sense that that's what I'm doing as well. And that's really what's worked for me over the years. And that's ultimately what's gotten scripts sold and optioned for me, is just getting out there and mixing things up and trying new things. You just never know what's going to work for you until you try it. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.